I believe Russia is the most dangerous because of a couple of things. First, they are more mature than some other of our potential adversaries, and I think they have some stated intents that concern me in terms of how the Cold War ended, and so for me, I'm concerned. And they have shown some significant capability in Ukraine to do operations that are fairly.
Well, the outgoing Army Chief of Staff talking about Russia as the greatest threat, echoing the incoming Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who said much the same thing in testimony. This comes as the story we broke here on Fox, the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani traveling to Moscow to meet with the Russian defense minister as well as Russian President Vladimir Putin. Soleimani is the head of the Iranian Quds Force. He has the blood of hundreds of U.S. troops on his hands, and this is a problem, according to many lawmakers.
When Russia wanted the arms embargo lifted, that's when the alarms should have gone off, because what Russia wants to be able to do is do these weapons systems sales to Iran. If General Soleimani is over there meeting with the Secretary of Defense in Russia and meeting with President Putin, it's to negotiate more activity that will mean more attacks on our allies in the region.
Chairman Ed Royce, we're back with our panel. George, what about Russia, its positioning on a number of fronts, including this one with Iran?
Well, I would rank fourth in the terms of threats to us the Islamic State, then the South China Sea, where the jockeying is dangerous, then the Korean Peninsula, where you have a lunatic and untransparent regime, but most of all Russia. Here you have a nuclear power in the center of Europe dismantling a European nation, slow motion, Ukraine, and governed in Mr. Putin by an angry man who has read Hitler's playbook, which is, Hitler said, I'm only trying to defend the near beyond Germans in the Sudetenland and in Poland. If I'm right about Putin, and I hope I'm not, his aim is to avenge the defeat of the Soviet Union. The way to do that is to destroy NATO. The way to destroy NATO is to have some incursion in the Baltic states, ostensibly on behalf of the Russians there, causing NATO to flinch from triggering the Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all, which unravels NATO.
Yeah, which is the question I asked Governor Scott Walker, actually, in the debate, was if Russia does what it did at the beginning of Ukraine to those other Baltic states, what happens?
Well, I don't think anybody really wants to answer that, but what happens is NATO has to do what it is contractually obliged to do. First, let me say it's nearly impossible to say better what George just said than George said it, and I absolutely, totally agree with him. But what bad timing for this Iranian general to go and meet with the Russians while the Congress, though on break, is considering the agreement with Iran. I mean, I don't know how many more votes they just lost as a result of this. But what troubles me the most about Putin is he is transparent about his goals. He seriously wants to intimidate NATO. He wants to undo, unravel, and reconstruct the end of the Civil War, the end of the Cold War. He invades Ukraine. There's no outrage here. Last poll showed only 4% of Americans care about the Ukraine. What would happen if a president, fill in the blank, in 2017 sent anti-tank missiles to the Ukraine and only 4% of Americans care about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's like Crimea, when the president said this is not going to stand about Crimea, and suddenly Russia had it, and it's in a different time zone, and they have different passports.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if Soleimani isn't over there talking about Syria, actually, and how they're going to shore up the Assad regime with Russian weaponry and things like that. Somewhere Mitt Romney is enjoying a hearty belly laugh because this was his position in the 2012 campaign and he was shouted down about it.
Right.
But now there are two generals on his side and two still undeclared, I guess, out of the Joint Chiefs.
Yeah, we'll follow that Soleimani story, and one that the State Department says they are going to go towards the UN Security Council. He was not supposed to leave Iran under the sanctions, so it does complicate things politically. That's it for the panel.